harnessing culture identity to shape creative talent.
Right, I can see you've already edited it. You would have noticed maybe if you looked at the brochure, we are one man down. Cristiano Aconci, he completely lost his voice, and I can assure you it wasn't due to any sort of partying. I can verify that because he was supposed to be at a dinner last night with us. But anyway, we've got two lovely gentlemen around me. Before we get into it, I think it's probably worth to sort of amplify the subject to do a bit of a round-robin intro on each of us. I'll kick off by saying that I've been 18 years in operations, CEO, CFO, and more lately, I've been helping a lot of young businesses in our industry grow, develop, distribute, and as well, obviously, help them with a lot of capital expansion funds through my VC. Charles, would you mind doing a nice intro?
Yes, I'm an investor in different company. Invested lastly in Farzad company. We've been friends since long time, and I'm actually father. That is the most important things for myself.
Hi, my name is Chris. So basically, my area of expertise is when it comes to HR. So I go into companies and support them like a fractional HR. Like what the previous panelists as well were saying, I support grow for a short period of time to get the things start, and they can continue there with their own fully functional HR team that they need. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. So let's get into it. And I felt probably it's important to sort of define what we're talking about here. So starting with our designated HR expert, if you don't mind, Chris, how would you define cultural identity, and why is it important in building teams and people?
Culture identity is very important because you have so many different people from around the globe, you know, that want to focus on bringing the best output. But the biggest issue sometimes I find when I go into companies is people's egos, you know, and that's the biggest drawback that you can find. So when you actually get people at a round table and start to discuss certain important things, then you can find the best things that you have the little insights, you know, and what they can continue focusing to reach the biggest outcome. And that's the take from there.
Charles, how important is cultural identity in your experience and all the teams that you've built over the many years?
Yes, you know, it was important because we got an experience in Albania where we got a group of more than 100 people in one company that were together with the Canadian people, Irish people, Italian people. And at that time, it was not easy, the communication at start. But I think that the secret is share moments together, share experience that go outside the environment of your work, and just stay together, try to create bridge. And obviously food and sometimes wine are beautiful bridge that creates a beautiful relationship. And when you create this environment where you support the creation of new relationship between staff, after you see some amazing results in terms of performance, in terms of motivation, and in terms of identity, because you start to have a company identity that go behind your identity as Italian or as Irish or as Canadian. So I believe that that was something really important. Obviously, the leadership should have an important commitment on that and should clarify as soon as possible when you start the company, look here, we want to have an inclusion environment where we love diversity. And above all, you should permit everyone inside your company to have a voice. And you should listen. So the most important things I believe for leadership is to make question, to show that we are humble person that want to learn. And I believe that even if you write things inside your office, something like short things where you say, every day is good to learn something. We never stop to learn. Everyone can help us. I think this kind of culture is really important, and people love to work in this kind of environment.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience in Tirana, and the wine was fantastic, amazing food. But I think, you know, we had all these different cultures around that table, and the first thing that I would say, and the most important word for me, is respect. Everybody had a starting respect for everybody. Give everybody a chance to understand who they are, what they are, what they were about, and obviously there's an objective to all of it. And I think it works very well. Okay, so we are talking about shaping creative talent. How would you promote creativity, and what are the typical blockers in organization when it comes to encouraging more of it?
So we were talking about this quite earlier, actually. So for creativity, when you have small companies that they want to grow, you know, you have a team of 10, 15 people. I always give my advice. You cannot be just a CEO sitting on top and you're just taking everything by the strand and focusing on what you want to do to get the numbers right, okay? So why don't you actually tell your small people, you know, junior or the other executives to try and help you out, you know? Have a little round table between all of you and say, guys, listen, this is what we need to do, you know? What is your creativity? How do you think we can go for this product or go in this different market? And you might have the best ideas that you were not even thinking about, or you thought, but you never thought it was possible because the actual team members that you have are there, you know, and they can get things done. If you empower them, you're going to get 110% back, 100% for sure.
So just referencing the conversation we had earlier, I've been in my experience, built teams from scratch, gone into a business to build a team and teams, and then I've been in other situations where I've gone into a business where the foundation was already set, the culture was already set, and I just had to add and enhance. In both of those situations, many a time we created this environment of, you know, deadline after deadline, process-driven, and for us to get our head out the sand to try and even be creative, to even have that hour on a Friday to talk to each other was non-existent. And from my experience, that was a very poisonous and dangerous experience. It only led to trouble. And, you know, it's one of the biggest things I've learned is that creating time for people, having that creative moment, giving people voice is super important, and it should be done at least once a week.
Yeah, I want to share something that is really related to creativity, because I believe that you should create time for creativity, and this should be a rule inside your company. So in one of my first company, that was a telco company, we create a model where you spend 50% of your time in some task, 30% on your time on some other tasks. In that way, it was organize your job and execute your job. And then you have 4 blocks of 5% of time. In that case, one of the 5% of time is try to be creative. In telco company, usually, it's very tough to be creative. And if you promote this kind of creativity, at the end, it will help you even to attract new talents. And to create this kind of creativity environment, you should need time. You have to give time to the people. You should give some moments where they can read some books, some moments where they can be together, making funny things, and create above all an environment where there is creativity. Creativity comes from color, comes from imaging. So your workstation should be creative. Everything should be around you creative. And I believe that the only option that we have as, let's say, a leader in company is to give time to get the creativity. Otherwise, you have always deadline. And with always deadline, you cannot go as a unicorn company. You can just go good company. That's it.
Yeah. Is there something to be said about the environment you create within an office as to how, you know, you can encourage creativity visibly, whether it's, I mean, you mentioned putting in specific words or signs, but, you know, the sort of makeup of the office. Have you ever been asked to sort of take a look at that side of things in your consulting?
Yes, so once I went into a company, it was one of the largest manufacturing companies back in Malta. And we had always a big table with all the chairs sit down. And not everybody was creative, you know, everybody's coming with their pens, their laptops, and everything. One fine day in the morning, I removed all of the chairs. When everybody came in, they said, Chris, where are the chairs? Where can we sit? That's my spot. I said, no, today everybody's standing up. Let's go for it. We only have 10 minutes in this conversation. The information that I got from every single person, because they're standing up and they're just walking, was amazing. The person that was arguing about the chair and everything, she then later told me, Chris, it changed everything. All my conversations where I'm going to nowadays, I'm going to remove my chair. I said, Some conversations you can, some conversations you cannot. But you'll get much, much more out of it, 100%. You just need to be a little creative.
I believe sometimes you can be even disruptive, and you can be even disruptive in the selection moments. For example, we used to do selection in some company where we put together like 10 people, 12 people, and they make interaction between them. And one very interesting part is when you ask people to stand up on the chair and start to pitch on the chair, maybe on one leg. So, and you do these things during the selection process. The selection process is a moment where you can share the culture of your company and where you can permit the other people to go out of the box and to express their creativity from day one. So I believe that is really important to create this kind of concept even in the selection process.
You just reminded me of a moment going back to that business. So I was the director of one of Charles's company, and we did this thing during dinner where everybody had to stand up and make a speech, and then say, I mean, there was obviously alcohol infusion in it, but then say, you know, who's the next person who's going to say something? And everybody got involved, and it was a dinner of like 10, maybe even 15 people, and it was just one of those dinners to remember for a long time. Okay, so let's move on to acquisition and retention. Chris, if you don't mind me starting with you again, what are the critical areas to get right in the acquisition and retention of talent?
So to get right in the acquisition, let's start from that point, okay? Is the employee branding, okay? So the company's name, reputation says a lot. You look at so many companies that when you go on certain sites and everything, their reputation is bad. And that's unfortunate. However, not everybody is authentic or approved. So I ask candidates, you know, look 100% exactly what or who is putting this information. There can be bots, for example, for who all knows, you know. They want to harm the competition. But getting the employee branding right is the most important thing. Getting the talent, then, that's the hardest thing. If you have respected headhunters, for example, like the previous panels before, like also Dave over here, back here, also myself, we can go in the companies and support you, okay? And that is where we'll understand. So we'll understand the culture and everything. That's where the exact build will come in, okay? And also you have your own employees. So ask your employees, you know, listen, if you guys are enjoying the company and everything, why not you guys promote ourselves, you know? Try and find the best talent, referral bonuses and everything. Continue encouragement, because that is where the retention and they will continue to stay, you know, to continue growing. We hear so many companies that in our industries, people are there for 7 years. It's unheard of sometimes, you know? People normally 2 years and they leave. But when you find people 7 years, the company is doing something right.
So I deal with a lot of young businesses and help them grow. And, you know, I cannot emphasize the importance of HR. But in a sort of a growing company with entrepreneurs, when they get their funding, almost the last thing they want to spend on is a HR director or, you know, the policies that to implement, the vision statement, everything else, the branding, as you've explained. But from my experiences, and particularly when I was at Matchbook, my closest ally when I was CEO was the group HR. She was just the most wonderful person. And as a CEO, you end up inevitably not managing the business, not managing strategy, you're managing people. You're managing the people that are responsible for delivering the execution of the strategy. And so you've got to ensure there's no blockers. And to really, truly do that, you need somebody by your side to understand people. And that's where the HR function is really important, in my point of view. Charles?
So, my opinion, to attract talent and to retain talent, the most important thing is to share emotions and to share value, create the brand on top of this value, and then create a strategy that is inside your identity. So you can just read the strategy. You cannot create a strategy. So everyone should do what he loves and what he likes. So in attraction of talent, it's really important, I believe, to have a format where you know the psychology of this person. So you use personality test, that is very interesting. And then you try to understand which is the function and the desired work for that person. So it's really important to give the opportunity to the people to do what they love and permit them to have like free activities. So they should be out of rigid rules in order to express in the best way. Even IT people. So when we have got like 30 IT people in one company, just engineer, if you permit them to be, let's say, like a normal person that can share emotion, can spend time even outside of the normal things and try to understand the business overall, 100%, speak with different section, I think this is very important. To retain talent, they should be part of a family. So it's really important that you create this value, this culture, where the company is not just a company, is a family. A moment where we can share emotion, we can share problem, but we can even solve problem together. So I believe that this kind of culture can help a lot.
See, not every CEO, in fact, most CEOs don't have that type of talent to, encourage that type of, getting the emotion out. And again, goes back to my point of the importance of HR. Even from a micro perspective, an extended service to bring that. So sticking with acquisition and retention, and I know in the previous chat we talked about a few tools, but what are the tools you would personally recommend, or tools that you use in the advent of technologies that support acquisition and retention?
I use AI. So at the end of the day, AI has to be there, okay, at the end of the day. But you need to personalize the outreach that you're going to speak to people, like how we connected and everything. It was very different, Yesterday I was speaking to others that they were influencers in this region themselves. So I actually done my research. And when I went to speak to them and everything, I knew every single person, what they like. So when I met XYZ, I went to them and I said, listen, I follow this part and this part, This is the amazing thing. Same when I'm looking for certain talent, for certain companies, I know an amazing CEO that will not fit right with a business. So why should I pitch him or her? It's not going to be that way. So going back to the original questions for the culture and everything and the identity, that's the most important thing. Using AI, it's just drafting and making the admin stuff much easier. You put the human element in it, and technically you sort of can do that in AI nowadays, but it depends how you use it and how much information you can get.
Charles?
You know the answer. I think that the best tool is always people and other people, because at the end, the company is like a family, is made by people. So the best tool, even in recruiting talent, is to ask your friends to introduce other friends, and above all, to have a process very well organized inside your company, where you have a human resource office that try to make maybe 100 interviews a week or 1,000, according with the largest of your company. And I believe that in your company, you should have a kind of sliding doors where it's very easy, let's say, to jump in, but it's very easy to go out. Because at the end, the process to start a relationship with someone that will work with you is not easy. And you can maybe make a bad bet. After 10 interview, 5 interview, whatever is the process, you never know the person very well. You never know the person when he's stressed. You never know the person behavior with other people. So I believe that it's really important to have people involved in these things, coming even from other section of your company.
Yeah, totally. Again, when companies accelerate, they're in sort of under serious pressure to hire very fast to meet the customer demands. And if there's one thing I'll always say is try and create an environment where hiring can be a patient process. You've got to get this right. Okay, I'm noticing the time, and we've got one very important subject to touch upon, and that is the importance of coaching and mentorship at particularly C-level.
So mentorship and coaching. So I prefer the mentorship side of it, because when you're speaking with C-level people and everything, it's so important to get things right. So when I'm speaking, I have a client right now, okay, and the project is 8 months long. No applications, no nothing, but it's actually just this proper discussions, okay? So every time I'm speaking with them, I'm micro-learning them, you know? We're actually going into certain aspects, but not spending a full hour or two, you know? But just giving them those 5-10 minutes of instant, and then switching again. Every time I'm meeting them, that's what's happening. And the outcome and the learning, it changes everything, you know? And that's the best thing that you can do. When it comes to coaching, then you can go in much, much more detail. We don't have that much time, because I want to leave Charles to say.
So in the last 20 seconds, I believe that the best way is to make the right question. Try to understand which is the question that I can do to this person in order that he can try to understand himself what he has to change. That's the main suggestion.
Brilliant. And I guess on that note, thanks for everybody for listening here today. Hope that was enjoyable.